Hi, this is Richard Azariga from Microsoft, and in this video we're going to look at Exercise 1 of the Salesforce Office Add-in Workshop. So in Exercise 1, we're really going to look at an overview of what an Office add-in is in kind of this modern version of Office, how we build those, and the different tools for both building them and running those add-ins. So a few prerequisites for this. First of all, you need a Microsoft account. So when I say a Microsoft account, that's any sort of email address and password you use to sign into Microsoft sites and services. So that might be an account that you use for Outlook.com, Xbox Live, OneDrive, and maybe Office 365. If you don't have one of those Microsoft accounts, there's a link here in the instructions that will allow you to quickly sign up for a new account. The second prerequisite is really more specific to Exercise 3, but this is you need a Salesforce.com developer account so that we can connect into some of the Salesforce.com APIs later on. If you don't have one of those, again, there's a link provided here to quickly sign up and get one of those developer accounts provisioned. Let's get started on Exercise 1. So in Exercise 1, we're really going to be more about how I can get started building these Office add-ins. Office add-ins are built using normal web technologies like HTML5, JavaScript, and CSS. And because they're web technologies, we're going to actually be able to build these in a browser. So we're going to use a tool called Napa, which is an in-browser web editor that the Visual Studio team provides for building these add-ins. So you don't have to install anything. All you really need is a modern browser. To do this, you can simply go out to napacloudapp.com. So I'm going to go ahead and open this in a new tab, and it will bring you to the starting page for Napa. And this gives you a little information. Hey, this is where I can build Office add-ins. And so what we're going to do is sign into this site. So I'm going to click sign in here up at the top, and it's going to ask me to provide that Microsoft account. So again, this is an account that you might use for different Microsoft sites and services. So I have an account that I use for working with Outlook.com. So I'm going to go ahead and provide that here. And once I sign in, it's going to ask my permission for some information. So Napa is going to need to use some basic information about me. It's going to need to use some cloud storage of mine. But ultimately, you can walk through and look at all these permissions, but I'm going to go ahead and grant it permission. So I'm going to go ahead and say yes. After I say yes, it's going to bring me back into Napa, and it's going to give me some choices on the type of Office add-in that I want to create. Okay, here we are back in the Napa Cloud App site, and you can see it's providing me some different options on the type of add-in that we can create. So we can create a content app for Office, we can create a task pane app for Office, and we can create a mail add-in for Office. So we're going to go with this center option. We're going to create a task pane add-in, and we can go ahead and give this a name. In this case, I'm going to call this the Opportunity Editor, and then go ahead and say create. It's going to go create up a starter project for me inside of Napa. Now, this is your first time into Napa. It might make sense to look around and kind of get a feeling for the environment. First of all, one of the things you can see is that I have a toolbar across the left-hand side where I can do things like look at the different files that are a part of my project. I can search for a file if I wanted to. I could go pull up the different settings for this application. So this is actually what we call a manifest for the application behind the scenes. I can run the application. I can do things like retract it if I want to pull it away and not have it be available to my new files. I could share it with others. I can publish it, or I can do a quick open of things. So ultimately, there's lots of options that I can do here. The other thing that you should notice here is that it already created a set of files in this project. So it's kind of a starter project. And it has some HTML files, some JavaScript files, and some CSS files. The home.html is going to be loaded by default, and that's the primary page that we're going to load in our task pane. So this is that primary page, and if you look at this in more detail, there's a few important things I'll point out. One is it already references jQuery. So we know that jQuery is a very popular script library, and so it's actually already provided here. You could remove it if you wanted to, but we'll use it for this first exercise. The second thing is there's a reference to office.js. This is a script library that provides all of our interactivity with the actual Office document. So we're going to use that script to do things like read information from the document, write information from the document, wire into different events from the document. We can do all that in here. Now, being an in-browser web editor, it's actually pretty powerful. There's a lot of great IntelliSense things where it can help provide me some additional help as a developer. So let me show you an example of that. Let me go to home.js. And home.js is kind of the main page script for our add-in. And you can see that it has something called office.initialize. Every add-in needs to run office.initialize within about 5 seconds of the add-in loading. So it's a really good pattern to get into to make sure that you're calling this basically as soon as all of your scripts load. Then I'm using a document ready and doing a few different things here. I'm initializing another script library, and then I'm wiring into a quick event on a button that we have. I'm going to add an additional line here, and what I'm going to do is let me just start writing some jQuery syntax. So I'm going to put $, and in here I'll look for any header ones that I have. Now when I click the dot button here, you can see that I get full IntelliSense. I can start typing. It gives me suggestions of what is valid on this type of object. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the HTML to something different, and we'll say maybe export options. So if we look in our HTML file, you can see here's a header 1 and it says welcome. So what should happen here is that when this add-in loads, it should immediately change that title from welcome to say export options. So I'm actually not going to do anything else here. I'm going to run this as is. We wanted your first exercise to be pretty simple, not a lot of heavy coding. So let's go ahead and press play and see this run. So at this point it's actually uploading a file to my OneDrive, which is a place where you can store files that you get as a Microsoft account holder. And you can see that in this case it tried to launch it in a pop-up, and in this case my browser blocked that pop-up. So I'm just going to click this button here to launch my app in a new window. So here it goes. It's launching Excel online. And the first time that I load this app, it's going to just warn me. It's going to say, hey, are you sure you want to trust this app? And so I'm going to go ahead and say start. I shouldn't get that dialog again. And our add-in should load. So there you go. You can see our add-in. You can see that it changed the title to export options, which is what we would expect because we wrote some script to do that. And this is already set up to read data from this document. So let me go ahead and put this worksheet or this workbook in edit mode. I'm going to go ahead and edit this here. And let me just put some data in a cell. So I'll just say, hello, Dreamforce. And now if I say get data from selection, I'm going to click this button here back in our add-in. What you'll see is, I think it's down below the screen. There it is. Hello from Dreamforce. So it was just hidden. It was able to read the text that we had in that cell. So I'll do it again here. Maybe I'll say hello again. And if I select that and say get data from selection, you can see it was able to read that data out of our worksheet. So this works in both directions. So what we'll see in exercise 2 is we'll actually go and from our add-in, we'll write some data to the worksheet and continually add on more and more to our add-in. So that concludes exercise 1, and if you've gotten this far, you've built your first Office add-in.